That'd be great. Okay, let me just share my screen. Let's get started. Okay, can you all see my screen? Yep, cool, good stuff. Excellent. Okay, well, look, thank you all very much for joining the June Broker Hour. Good to see you all again. I know there's a number of people who aren't able to make it today, so we will send the recording around. Some of the things that we would like to cover off today, it's been a little while since we gave you a demo of the latest functionality that we've released over the last number of weeks and months. So we'll start with that, and Jackie will take you through that in a moment. Also wanted to share with you an update on where we're up to with our partner ecosystem. So as you know, we already have quite a rich set of partners built into the system, but we've got a lot more coming on board. So I just wanted to share an update on that and let you know what's coming in terms of partner functionality over the coming months. Then delighted to say that we're joined by Andrea Clegg from Ariga Advocates, who's going to talk to us about how to manage and reduce the risk of a fleet. Some really interesting insights there, actually, in terms of what Andrea is going to share. So looking forward to that session. And then we'll finish off with the usual Q&A session. Okay. So without further ado, let's start to look at the what we've been doing recently from a product point of view. So you'll remember from our most recent broker forum that we have two major launches recently. So the first of those is our EV transition planning solution with Masternaut. So a number of you are making good traction, making good progress with that particular proposition. Again, a brief reminder, that proposition comes in 3 stages, starting with a readiness assessment, which enables you to assess whether or not your customers' vehicles and fleet are ready to transition to EV, and if so, which vehicles and when, and to which EVs they should transition. From there, there's a lot of transition planning tools available, as well as consultation calls to handhold the customer through that journey. So again, quite a comprehensive proposition there. And I'd encourage any of you who are not yet out there talking about this and selling it in to let us know, and we can have a follow-up call with you and with Masternaut as well, because we're getting some really good feedback on this proposition, and it's certainly something that's going to help you out in the marketplace. The second area, as you saw from the last broker forum, was our enhanced accident management proposition with FMG. So whilst you can already manage accidents within ODO manually, our integration with FMG means that your customers now have an outsourced partner who can manage the accidents from start to finish and all of the issues and admin, etc., that go with that. And that is then integrated back into ODO. So all of the data that's captured by FMG regarding the accident and cost, etc., is then pulled back into ODO. So customers have a single view of everything that's going on in relation to that vehicle that was involved in the accident. So again, another really strong proposition. If you're not already talking about it with your customers again, and you want a refresher, let us know, and we can again jump on a call with you and go through that again as well with Leighton from FMG. Okay. We've also been very busy with our own product enhancements over the last number of weeks and months, and let me just give you a very brief overview of the 3 key areas that we've been focusing on, and then I'm going to stop sharing and let Jackie then take you through each of these. So we've made some enhancements to our driver app in terms of new service and MOT alerts in the app. We've given drivers the ability to update service complete dates and mileage, and also we've given customers the ability to disable unused dashboard tiles within the app to make it cleaner and easier to use. Inspections, there's been a number of changes to inspections, 2 of which are default inspection templates, again with the objective of making it easier to get customers started and set up on ODO, and also grey fleet vehicle only templates. And finally, there's been a lot of developments just more generally in ODO. Again, we'll just share some of those today. That includes Masternaut driver behavior integration, pool drivers, pool vehicles, cost centers, and family member license checking. So it's been a busy number of weeks and months. I know quite a few of you are already benefiting from these solutions with some of your customers that you've been bringing on board, which is great to see. I'll pause sharing and hand over to Jackie to just bring these to life a little bit more and demo these within the product now.
Okay, right. I will attempt to share my screen. Okay. Is that in view, Rob? Yeah? Yeah.
Yep, it is, yeah.
So I won't go into it in big depth, but I'll just cover some of the main points. So what we've got is the app here. And what you'll see now is that we have some alerts that come in here. So we can, I think there's only one on this example, but it'll show you an LOT alert or a service alert. If it's a service and it's enabled, the driver will be able to update the service. Oh, sorry, bear with me. We'll be able to update the service done date and the, oh, sorry. Oh, try again. Yeah, so we'll be able to update the service done date and the odometer. So for those customers that you have that are managing their own vehicles on the system, or they're being managed by the lease company, the driver can at least start updating the service date and the mileage. So therefore, we can then do the prediction tool in ODO to make it far more efficient. So I know that's been asked for by a couple of our brokers. So that's now in there. What we do have, though, is the ability to disable that. So for the brokers that are on here, the call today, who are fully managing the end user and they do not want the driver to do that in the app, what you can do in the permissions, you can now disable or enable them the ability for them to update the service in the app. So I'll still see the alert, they just won't have the update button in there. So that's nice and easy. The other thing is the tiles. So let's go back to the app and go back to the main tiles. And you can see that, so some of the tiles, not all of them can be disabled, but what we can see here, we can have view only and we can now disable things. So we can get rid of fuel, we could get rid of expenses, we could get rid of accidents. You can make that, tailor that to the customer's needs. So if they've got their own expenses to switch it off. Fuel, for most customers, they're not using fuel receipts to recoup their fuel costs, so disable that within the app. So that's that one. And then we move. Rob, what's the next section? I haven't got the presentation on my screen. Hang on. Okay, so coming back to inspections. So at the moment in ODO, you've had to, every time you create a new customer, you have to create the inspection from scratch. And I know some of these inspections are quite long. So what we have now, so if we go to broker level and go into settings, please don't crash. What we have now is the ability to create default templates. So let me just go in here, and these are ones I've been playing around with. So what you can do is click on new template, and you can define whether that's a vehicle inspection or it's a fit to drive. So we just create that and we call it fit to drive. Not fit, but fit. And then for those who are using inspections, you know how to add all of the items. What you do to make it available in the customer screen, you make it enable and you press save. So you can see on my list here, we have a number. So we click on this one, for instance, this is one I've configured, and you can see this is purely now just grey fleet. So having had a number of conversations with the brokers, there are some grey fleet only fleets we now have on the system. So they want to specifically do inspections just around those type of vehicles and keep other vehicles out of there. So you can do that same thing. You can also do the scheduling from here, but I guess that's customer specific. So you can do that at customer level. So if I go and choose one of my customers to have a look at what we've got. Apologies for the delay. So if I now go to customer settings and inspection templates, what you'll now see at the bottom is a set of default templates that the customer can use. They can still create one from scratch if you want to, but what you can do here is select a template and then you make a copy. And then that becomes customer specific. So you call it whatever you want. I'll just put test and create template. And then that becomes, and then you've got all of the questions and answers you've already done for that customer. in the list. So that's a really nice, easy way now of getting your customer up and running for the inspections within the system. So next one on there was the driver behavior. So let's have a look. So if we go to the dashboard, first of all, same customer. So we can see this customer has telematics. So we have live telematics units coming into this customer, and we can click on one of these and it tells me the vehicle and the last trips, and we can go to the trip details. But what I'm going to do is just go back to the dashboard, and at the bottom we have now is some fleet eco events. So this is pulling in driving behavior details for vehicles from the telematics unit. So you can see here in this period on the 28th, we've got harsh events, speeding events, idling events, any of these. And what we can do is just click on one of these, open up the details, tells me the vehicle registration and if there's an allocated driver, and I can export that to Excel. What we also have at vehicle level, if I just select one of these vehicles, we'll go to hybrid. Now go to my trips. Again, this vehicle I know has a telematics unit associated to it. And what you can see here, we've now got a 12-week score for the driving this particular vehicle. So that's based on the events that we're doing. So if we just go, so we know the last trip on this vehicle was 2021 trips. And then I can come down here and I can select one of these trips. And what it's going to do is open that up with how that driver is performing. So they're speeding, harsh braking, it could be idling, it could be harsh acceleration, harsh cornering. So we're feeding this in live data from the two types of devices. So that's the OBD device and the hardwire device. The pulse unit, which is just the light unit, only gives us the trip information. So what we'll be doing as we start collecting more of this data into ODO, we will start adapting the dashboards to give you a lot more metrics around trips and trip information based on the unit. So at the moment it's Masternaut, but as you know, ODO is built agnostically. So therefore we will be looking at working with other partners to bring in telematics data within the system. The next one, Rob, was pool, I believe, pool vehicles. So what we have at vehicle level is the ability to, I'll go back here, to mark the vehicles at pool. So we know there's a lots of fleets we now have in ODO where we have pool vehicles and pool drivers. So to set these up, it's really quite simple. So we have a flag here to see what we've got at the moment. So you can see these vehicles are all specifically in the pool. So I'm just going to just check on one. And we can see that that's got a pool car flag in there. So that vehicle, so when a driver logs into the app and they have the ability to select a pool vehicle, this vehicle will be presented for them to allocate across. So again, from a driver's perspective, you have to give them access to pool vehicles, and not all drivers will. So in this example, and if I go to vehicles, we can see that Jane has got access to pool vehicles, and you can see that Jane has been in and out of lots of different vehicles because she's able to, within the mobile app, select a vehicle. So if I just go back to the app and go to change vehicle, when the driver first logs in, they'll be presented. So this is a really bad example because Jane's got lots of vehicles. So where she's fully allocated, there's no pool flag, but you can see all the pool vehicles that Jane can access, so she can allocate and deallocate the vehicle within the app, and that then will record the allocation history. If the driver logs into the app and the vehicle they want to use is still allocated because the driver hasn't deallocated, they can reallocate that vehicle in the app and stop the deallocation for the previous driver within there. Rob, is that what's next? Is that it?
Plus centers, then family member license.
Okay, cool, thank you. Right, family, I'll do first because I'm in this one. So we can see at driver level, we can add family members. If I click on Jack Doe, Jack is now able to be license checked. So we can set a driver up to be a family member, and then we can add the license details like we do for our standard drivers, and we can now license check family members. So historically, there had to be an employee of the company to do it and weren't segregated. So now they're specific in that they have a family member flag and they are linked to a driver, and then we can report in the driving license check-in report that we have within ODO that the family member has a check or is outstanding, etc. So that's in there. And then the last bit was to do with cost centers and nominal codes. So within departments, what we have now is the ability to create a department, a location, and assign a cost center, and then at driver level assign the cost center to drivers. So I only know there's 1 or 2 brokers on here already using that within ODO. And the other thing we have is reference data. So for those who are using maintenance within the platform, we have now got the ability to configure nominal codes for reporting. So you can allocate a maintenance work to a particular nominal code when it's added to ODO. So there's quite a lot on this. There's been a specific broker who's driven this, naming no names, but that's all to the good for the platform in here. And as Rob said, he'll show you the next slide, which is all of the things that we're going to also bring into the platform going forward. That's me done, I think, Rob.
Cool, thanks, Jackie. Yeah, so I guess as you can see, there's been quite a lot going on. Some of it, quite detailed, but really important functionality to enable some of the customers that you've been bringing on recently as well. So I think what I'd say is, where you do have requirements or where your customers are coming in with new requirements, we're pretty flexible to work very closely with you to make sure we get those into the roadmap and prioritized. Let me just go back to the slides and share with you an update as to where we are with our partner ecosystem. So again, from a partnership point of view, you're already aware that we've got CAP data integrated within ODO. We've got the DVLA driver license checking in there. We've got I-247 concierge services. We've got telematics with Masternode, and we're constantly evolving that Masternode integration, as you saw from Jackie. In addition to that, we've got a number of new partners. So you saw recently our FMG accident management proposition. We're also working with Allstar on fuel card integrations. So again, you can manage accidents and you can capture fuel card data, but what we're doing is just working on the automated integrations with these providers now. We're also working with the service point proposition, the Allstar service point, from a service, maintenance, and repair perspective. Ultimately, what that is going to enable is a driver to self-serve and to book themselves in for a service in a local garage that's relevant to them. So that proposition might not be relevant to some of you who are managing maintenance through the finance providers. However, it will be to a number of the people we're speaking to at the moment. So again, good integration there from an SMO point of view. We're speaking to DriveTech, who are part of the AA group, about integrating their driver training platform as well. We are looking at Shell from a fuel card point of view and speaking to Shell around integration of fuel cards. And of course, by the way, when I say fuel cards, I also mean the EV charging. So public EV charge points and payment for those will be integrated within the platform. And we're speaking to a company called Mina, pretty interesting company, who enable an employer to pay for the cost of charging an employee's company car at home. And what Mina do is they, I guess, insert themselves between the energy provider of the employee and the employer. So the employer pays Mina, and Mina then pay the energy provider so that the employee is not out of pocket for charging their EV at home. So quite an interesting concept there. And we are, again, working with Mina to integrate that proposition into ODO. Like I say, there's plenty more others that we haven't spoken about that are on the roadmap as well, but they're the key kind of ones that we're working on right now. And again, if any of you have got other partners that you're keen to work with, do let us know, and we can obviously kind of look into them and work with you and them. And speaking of other partners that we're working with, Ariga Advocates and Andrea Clegg is one of those. And Andrea's been a long-time partner of ours, and has always got some really interesting insights into how best to manage fleets and how best to manage the risk associated with managing a fleet. So what I'd like to do is hand over to Andrea, who is going to take you through a very brief intro to Ariga Advocates, and then more interesting as well, share some insights into how best you and your customers can minimize the risk associated with managing a fleet. So Andrea, over to you.
Thanks, Rob. Morning, everybody. I'm Andrea. I run Ariga Advocates. Move to the next slide, Rob. We're a legal firm regulated by the Solicitors Regulation Authority, but as a firm we specialise in road traffic and motoring matters, representing people, making representations to the police and prosecution to reduce charges, dealing with sentences and dealing with trials. As part of that work, it became apparent that employers were not managing their drivers in order to reduce those types of prosecutions, or indeed managing them in order to comply with health and safety. So we set up an Ariga Fleet division where we write motoring policies for businesses and we advise on implementation of procedures and ensure that companies are compliant with health and safety and also road traffic legislation. Yeah, I'm ready to move on, thank you. Now, I'd just like to go through some useful information when you're speaking to customers about why they should manage these risks. If an organisation has 5 or more employees, as you will know, they have to have a written assessment for working activity. The road is a workplace. If any employees are driving, then they need a written assessment and you need a motoring policy for your company. And the road as a workplace is the single biggest cause of workplace death. So it's one that definitely needs managing. Company drivers are 40 to 50% more likely to have a collision than the average driver purely because of the mileage that they're doing. 240,000 road traffic offences are committed by people who are driving for work. Some more shocking statistics: 1 in 10 drivers get behind the wheel intoxicated by alcohol or drugs. This is a key area for me that I think does need some management for employees. It's a huge area of risk. And an RAC survey showed that 1 out of 10 employees would tell their employees if they're disqualified. What about the other 9? How is that being managed? Only 1 in 4 would actually admit to having any points. This shows the importance of driver licence checks, and we come across companies where they take a copy of the licence, file it away, do nothing with it. We have others that do licence checks but don't understand the data on there and therefore do nothing with it. In the cases that we've dealt with where drivers are facing disqualification, we've asked the cost of recruitment and replacement for those drivers, and it's varied between £25,000 and £40,000. Managing prosecutions could save that cost. And alarmingly, 79% of small and medium businesses do not realise that the road is a workplace and therefore do nothing. So the questions you should ask a company: do you have grey fleet or company vehicles? If they do you have a policy and a procedure? If they do, then do they ensure that the drivers know and understand the policy of procedure? To just have a written policy which isn't implemented in any way is just giving lip service to the health and safety law. Do you do driver licence checks? There are a lot of companies out there who take copies of a driving licence and file them away and never look at them again. If they do driver licence checks, do they understand drivers' records and know what to do with them? It's not a matter of just looking at the records and tallying up the points. Do you know when the points count? Do you know the date from when they count to when they expire on the record? Can you distinguish the difference between when somebody starts with a date of offence as opposed to a conviction? Do you know whether the date of the points are all on the same date in the same offence? Because they don't all count. Some do and some don't. It's not a straightforward counting exercise, and people need to know how to calculate them accurately. Do you manage notice of intended prosecutions? Do you just complete the request for driver information, send them back, and do nothing else? This is an area where companies don't do an awful lot. If not managed effectively, it exposes directors to points and potential disqualifications. 2 offences on this and you're totting up. It's really important from our point of view that these are managed effectively for the benefit of the driver, because if you get in at this stage, you can help the driver avoid points and certainly avoid a disqualification. Sometimes we can get involved and even stop the prosecution completely. Do you implement any procedure and supervise and manage drivers to ensure that they comply with any of the above? This is a really important place that you monitor and manage drivers effectively. Now, the ODO platform will do that in terms of vehicles. If you've got telematics, yes, you're monitoring the driver behaviour. But are you looking at the points? Are you looking at how any points endorsed on a driver's licence impacts on insurance, for example? Are you checking the driver's behaviour? Are you taking in the driver's notice of intended prosecutions that have occurred outside work, which will still impact on the workplace? So there's a whole host of things that you should be doing around implementing the policy and procedure. So what's the impact of not managing the risk? Well, employees and directors are put at risk. Directors can sometimes have to take the hit because of errors that employees have made, particularly in returning Section 172 requests for driver information. Under health and safety, there can be personal liabilities. Directors can incur imprisonment. The companies can incur fines, and we'll go on to that to show you how that works. And also, of course, personal injury, damage, and claims against the company, which are obviously, there's a partnership with ODO and FMG, and we're also working with FMG. And obviously it puts other road users at risk if people are not driving carefully, not driving within the legislation, or vehicles are not in a good condition. It can expose them to personal injury. And if it does expose to personal injury or death, it then brings in very serious implications for the company and the directors, as well as the employee, particularly if alcohol or drugs are concerned. And the cost to business is excessive in terms of the fines, in terms of the cost of replacing drivers if they're disqualified. And on top of all that, you've got the company reputation at risk, particularly if you get a high profile case where somebody's died and the company just hasn't got anything in place. It's a company's legal, social and moral responsibility to manage these risks effectively. So I've given you a lot of stats there, but let's deal with some real examples, some of which I'm sure you know. The Baldwin Crane Hire Limited, that was a defective vehicle where somebody died, and the court concluded as a failure to manage and maintain vehicles. There was a £700,000 fine and £200,000 costs. Cotswold Geotechnical Holdings, 2011, convicted of corporate manslaughter. The fine was £385,000. They took that to the Supreme Court because it was going to put them out of business. And the court said, that doesn't matter. You should be following health and safety. Renowned Consultants, which was last year, they failed to implement their procedures effectively. So they had all the written procedures, but failed to implement them in terms of the age of the driver and also driving whilst extremely tired after a long shift. They were fined £450,000 and £300,000 costs. There was effectively the company were criticised, and this is important, I think, when you're talking to companies, that they only paid lip service to their policies. They weren't implementing them, supervising them, as I said they ought to. Now, one of our own cases, this shows the failing to keep track of notice of intended prosecutions. This driver's company had received a notice of intended prosecution. They hadn't got his details up to date. He knew nothing about it till he committed an offence of a mobile phone offence, whilst he wasn't at work, by the way. But what that did brought him to totting up. Suddenly he was facing a disqualification that he should not have done. We did successfully keep his licence. So we won the argument on exceptional hardship, and he wasn't disqualified. But none of that needed to have happened if at the point of notice of intended prosecution, that was managed. Had we been involved in that at that stage, he wouldn't have faced totting up at all, probably would have got a fixed penalty, and that would have been the end of it. As it is, he had to go to the expense. The company worried about losing a very skilled technician that would be extremely expensive to replace. So I just thought I'd come on to sentencing to show you the importance of encouraging your clients to manage the risk of fleets. In corporate manslaughter, you can see a small business, that's a business, a micro business, up to 2 million. The range of sentences, 180,000 to £800,000. Those sort of figures would probably put most companies into some difficulties. A small business turnover between 2 and 10, 350,000 to 2.8 million. These are penalties designed to make companies take risk management seriously. The breach of health and safety legislation, you can see for the organisation there, it varies from £200 to £250. And this is all based on whether there's a low culpability. The more you've done to manage the risk, the lower your culpability. And you can see the difference in fines, £200, £250,000. The difference is staggering. And again, the small business, 700 to 1.6 million. And a greater concern, particularly for the managing directors of companies, is the individual liability. The more you've done in terms of managing the risk, it can vary from a conditional discharge, which is a slap on the wrist, behave yourself for 12 months, to up to 2 years custody. And that's the difference between not managing that risk and managing it as effectively as you can. So companies that have a good risk management system, claims go down by 20%, insurance claims 15%, driver poor driving goes down by 20%, and damage costs are down, fuel use is down. So as you can see, there's a lot of savings over and above the fines and the claims, etc., on managing the fleets. So what do businesses have to do? Well, they have to give more than lip service. They need to provide a policy, handbook and procedure, implement and supervise that policy. They can train their staff or engage a company like ourselves to manage the notice of intended prosecutions. If we do that, we provide early advice to employees, understand and manage the driver license checks, and identify at an early stage drivers who require training, and then provide that training. We offer legal support. We offer it on a monthly fee basis per driver. We can implement a policy, procedure, handbook, which is bespoke to the company. We manage the notice of intended prosecutions, and that includes very early advice to the company and the driver, and representations to the police, which can at that stage nip it in the bud, so to speak, so that they don't face any prosecution at all. Driver license checks advising the companies of the impacts and the steps required to stay legal. Alcohol and drug testing. We take a proactive approach to fleet management, reacting to the information that is on ODO in terms of notice of intended prosecutions, points accumulating on the licence. We advise the company and the driver, and as I said before, we identify any training needs. By doing this, you can reduce your liability under both health and safety and road traffic legislation, making significant savings for the company. We have a training platform called DriveBright, where we offer e-learning courses, and we also offer the traditional classroom and on-the-road training for drivers. The difference between our training and other people's training is that we incorporate all the usual safer driving practices, vehicle checks, but we also train and educate on road traffic law. So, for example, in the drink driving course, we actually go into specifics of the offences, what the penalties are, how to manage if you're drinking, how to manage that safely and effectively without having an impact and risking the fact that you're drinking and driving over the limit, particularly with the morning after type argument. There's a lot of information about alcohol, about elimination and what you should and shouldn't be doing. It's not all about the offences. And also what to do when you're stopped by the police, so that you don't fall into dangers of even more serious offences. To summarise then, we offer a review on companies for driver policy in relation to health and safety best practices and management of those legal practices, including road traffic prosecutions. We can introduce alcohol and drug policy, including testing for businesses. Alcohol and drug-related accidents are a high percentage, and it's something that clearly does need managing. We have complete management of notice of intended prosecutions.
Where the dogs go?
In the kitchen.
Okay.
We give written advice to the company and the driver. We deal with the police and the CPS, and we can draft template letters of support for drivers facing disqualification before the court. So rather than having to write them from scratch, they can literally use the same data in the template letters. And the highest level of service is where we write plea and mitigation and the single procedure notice on behalf of the company or the driver. And as I said, we provide an e-learning platform to promote better driving habits and better understanding of road traffic law to mitigate offences and increase awareness. And we offer a complete package of that e-learning for at a special rate for ODO drivers. So there's about 9 short courses which all evolve around driver training, and that's £180 for anybody registered on ODO Drive. So if you're interested in any of this, I know Rob's kindly going to provide a link, and there's a PDF there. You'll have all this information to hand to discuss with your clients, and there'll be information about the services that we can offer you to add on to your fleet management services, which you already provide. Unless anybody's got any questions.
Thanks, Andrea. That was excellent. Yeah, any questions for Andrea? I mean, there's so many interesting stats and kind of food for thought in there. What would be your any initial thoughts, comments? No, okay. As Andrea mentioned, I will send out the PDF in a follow-up email, and can certainly arrange then one-to-one calls with yourselves, with your teams, and any of your customers who'd like a follow-up discussion on this. That's absolutely no problem at all. Okay.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you again, Andrea. Really interesting insights there, and really good food for thought. Just a final piece from myself, again, a consistent reminder of the fact that, you know, we are here to support you all in terms of your training of your team, for key users within your business, here to help with your sales. I know we do that very actively with most of you already anyway, so I'm sure you're all aware of this, but just it's worth reminding. Again, any support that you need with customer engagements, product demos, customer onboarding, please do let us know. And we can also pull in the likes of Andrea or other partners where appropriate as well to those. And then from a marketing point of view, again, been providing quite a few of you with marketing content, etc. So please do let us know if you want to either any specific support or just say, you know, time to just brainstorm some ideas around what type of campaigns you could run to run some lead generation for your fleet management business. So again, here to support you across all 3 areas there. So that's it really. I mean, I guess we've shown you the latest reminder of the fact that we launched recently our FMG accident management proposition, our EV transition planning tool. We've made a number of changes to the product across the app, inspections, and just generally within ODO. You've heard from Andrea in terms of how to minimize the risk, and again, the support that's available from us. So nothing else from our side. Any final questions before we wrap up? No? Okay, well, I will send out a recording of the call and also the slides and Andrea's information, and look forward to speaking to you all again soon. So thanks very much for your time today.